if you ask me why the United States is so-called the superpower, it's because of the control of the international currency and also of the control of oil, which is the petrodollar. Everything is transacted in dollar. But now Russia, Putin said, if we would want to transact oil gas in terms if you buy, we don't gagamitin nyo na is yuan, so the Chinese currency. And even Iran already have said that. So itong shift na magiging from petrodollar to petro-yuan, if it becomes more evident, it means there's already a new super number one in the world, and that's China.
Samantala mga kababayan, atin po munang malaman ang sapantahan ng isa pong geopolitical analyst kaugnay po sa mga nagaganap ngayon sa gitnang silangan ngayon pong Martes ng gabi sa Pilipinas. Kasama natin via Zoom si Professor Ana Malindog Uy. Prof, good evening po sa MJ. Ngayon pong 10 oras ng gabi. Kamusta po kayo, ma'am?
Good evening, MJ. Thank you so much for inviting me. Okay naman ako. Pasensya na kung na-late ng konti. At it's good to be back here. Okay ba yung reception ko?
Loud and clear, ma'am. Loud and clear po. Ma'am, kamusta na po ang inyo pong monitoring ngayon sa mga ganap sa gitnang silangan? Mukhang wala pang aasahan ang mundo na kapayapaan dahil tuloy pa rin tensyon sa Middle East.
I think tama ka dyan, MJ, kasi so far, yung nag-collapse, from what I know, no, correct me if I'm wrong, nag-collapse nag-collapse ang tinatawag mong peace talks between Iran and the United States and Israel Access, na binobroker at na-broker actually ng Pakistan. So I think that is the situation at the moment. But as to how exactly yung sinatawag mong quote-unquote collapse, it has, well, we need to check on it. But from what I know, dahil nga, I think there was several items dun sa agenda na nilahad ng Iran na hindi actually magawa ng United States. Like for example, at ng Israel, like for example, stop the attack against Lebanon. So hindi yun magawa ng Israel, hindi pumapayag ng Israel. But on the other hand, the Israel said that it's actually supporting or backing the so-called proposed peace talk between the United States and Iran. Pero hindi niya magawa yung isa sa mga agenda na nilalahad at mga negotiating points na nilahad ng Iran last week. So that is one. And I think right now, what is happening is si Trump parang this is a developing story na para bang United States is creating a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, saying that this blockade, will not, any kind of ships will not be able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz kasi nag-create sila ng blockade doon. Though, ang alam ko rin on the part of China is saying that it has some kind of agreement and it has established agreement with Iran when you talk about oil supply. So my business deal sila as two governments, two states that are sovereign, and they entered into that agreement. And China is also very strong, saying that United States, whatever blockade you have in there, you don't, parang wag nyo kaming pipigilan because kami ng Iran, we have our own agreements. And this agreement should be honored by Iran and we are honoring it as China. So wala kayo dyan, out kayo dyan. So far, when you talk about oil tanker ng China, I think even though may blockade na sinasabi ang United States, it can pass through the Strait of Hormuz freely. I think that is the situation at the moment. But of course, Trump is saying many, many things. At alam naman natin si Trump na kung anong mga sinasabi niya, hindi naman yun ang actual na nangyayari sa ground. So may mga ganong sitwasyon ngayon ang Middle East. So kung tatanungin mo ako, MJ, kung humuhupa na ba ang gera, magkakaroon na ba ng peace, at may political solution na ba, so far, I don't think that is the case at the moment. So we are going to wait kung anong mangyayari pa. Pero I don't think the crisis is de-escalating or some kind of may end na doon sa nangyayari sa Middle East na war or Middle East crisis. I don't think that is the case at the moment. So
O-
parang ganun, yeah.
Opo, tsaka ang mahirap niyan, Prof, pag natuloy sila na magpadala ng ground troops sa Iran, talagang yan na ang umpisa ng bakbakan na siguro tatagal ng ilang buwan. Kasi, di ba, Prof, mahirap naman pag nagpadala ka doon ng tropa sa ground, kailangan tapusin mo yung misyon dahil kung hindi, mawawala ng saysay yung pag-aalay ng buhay ng mga masasawi doon. Talaga mapapasubo ang US at hindi lang po ang US nito, ma'am. Paano naman po yung mga bansa sa iba't ibang bahagi ng mundo na apektado po ng global disruption sa supply po ng langis?
That's true. Like actually, from what I know, there are U.S. generals in the United States, mga generals nila ba na sinasabi nga kay Trump na itong ground kasi pinupush nga ni Trump itong ground invasion, ground deployment of ground troops. So parang combat na ang mangyayari kasi ngayon ang war missile to missile ka, and usually ang drones. So usually it's controlled by it's digitally controlled or electronic controlled or computerized controlled, you know. Pero pag sinabi mo kasing magsisend ang United States ng ground troops sa Iran, that's already combat. It's face-to-face combat. May it be with whatever, pero face-to-face na yan. So, pero doon sa United States, maraming mga military officials, even high-ranking generals saying na they cannot afford it. The United States cannot afford it, and they should not do this. It's not a good strategy, something to that effect. Kaya nga, at maraming mga high-ranking US military officials ang tinanggal ni Trump. He fired many of them because may mga opposition nga dito sa plano na gusto ni Trump na magkaroon nga ng ground troops dyan. So, at the moment, wala pa naman atang ganun. So far, sa monitoring ko, wala pa naman. Pero that was something na on the table na gusto ni Trump. But so far, wala naman. Wala pa. We don't know if it really happens, though there are a lot of opposition to it. Pero yun ang sinasabi ko. Pag yan ang ginawa ni Trump, that is an indication of escalation of the conflict. And also, I don't think it will. So, ang mangyayari, kapag nag-escalate pa yung conflict, may confrontation ka na on the ground, man-to-man, combat na yan. So, ang mangyayari dyan, yung crisis, yung war, hindi siya mag-stop. Magkakaroon yan ng, continuation, and at the same time, now it's affecting the whole world, especially Asian economies. Kasi most Asian economies dependent sa oil supply coming from the Middle East. So if you look at the Asian economies, including the Philippines, we're very much affected. Hindi lang naman ang Pilipinas, but even India, Bangladesh, almost of all of these countries. So kapag ganyan ang nangyari, magpo-prolong yung conflict, and at the same time, there will be more humanitarian casualties. So yun yung sitwasyon. So I really hope that, someone can possibly advise Mr. Trump not to do kumbaga, find a middle ground or find a political solution to the conflict. And well, the problem is, it's a very difficult situation, even politically speaking. Kasi sabi ko nga nung sa unang interview ko, ang Iran is already strong in their position kung anong gusto nila at anong hihilingin nila sa US at saka Israel. And I don't even think that really Trump and even Netanyahu is willing or can even really bend para maibigay kay Iran yung kanyang mga hinihingi. Especially when you talk about the nuclear program. Yung nuclear program. So, yan yung natin, yan ang sitwasyon na sa akin, hindi siya nakakabuti para sa mundo. Hindi siya nakakabuti para sa bansang Pilipinas din. Kasi tayo talaga apektado. At makikita mo naman, I think tomorrow, mayroon ng rally ang transport sector, ang Manibela ba? Yeah, they will have rally for 3 days. So that is already indication that, the transport sector, ang mga drivers natin, really, they're affected already sa crisis. And I think if this Middle East war will continue, lalo pang apektado. At baka mamaya, hindi lang transport sector ang mag-rally dyan. Kasi lahat naman tayo apektado sa nangyayaring energy crisis sa Pilipinas na, well, we're hoping the government of Marcos Jr. will be able really to certain extent address concrete solution to the ongoing crisis.
Opo.
Sa Pilipinas, hindi lang sa Middle East, yung crisis natin sa Pilipinas, yeah.
Opo, Prof, nakikita nyo rin po ba ang sinasabi din ng ibang mga geopolitical analyst na pagkatapos po ng giyera na ito, abay magbabago na po ang world order at hindi na po ang US ang dominant force sa mundo?
Yes, that's actually one of my prediction too. I already said these things in many of my interviews, not only with SMNI, but even internationally speaking, because I was interviewed by several international correspondents on this in different programs, no, media program. Ang sinasabi ko nga, at the end of this crisis sa Middle East, I'm not saying that automatic na magkakaroon ng tinatawag mong global shift, and there would be and the global shift na kung saan the United States will not be anymore the superpower per se, that number one in the world, because at the moment, if you look at the United States, declining power talaga siya. Even before the Middle East war, it's already a declining superpower. And you can really see that there's a rising star, rising superpower, which is China. Before the Middle East war, this is already happening. But because of the Middle East crisis at the moment, the decline of the United States is really like dramatic and very quick, very rapid. And when I say decline, it does not only mean economic. Kasi economically, may marami na silang problema even before. Militarily, that will be economic, military, and one more important thing is the petrodollar. Because right now, kung titignan mo, there's already a shift to a petro-yuan. When you say petro-yuan, that's the currency of China. And if it, in a matter of time, if maging petro-yuan na yan, that's already an indication that the rise of China is solid and you cannot prevent it, and it's already there. So when you ask me kung magkakaroon ng shift in the world order, yes, definitely yes. But I think it will be more evident and apparent in a matter of 5 years from now. Kasi, syempre, ang decline is, hindi naman yan na, bagsak. Makikita mo, dahan-dahan yan. Pero ngayon nga, hindi nga dahan-dahan, dramatic na nga ang decline ng United States. Kasi imagine mo, MJ, in terms of gastos pa lang, kasi ang gera may gastos yan, in every day, I think the United States is losing $2 billion. And now roughly around $30 billion already is the amount of funds na United States is losing because of the Middle East crisis. That's even aside from the fact na may mga casualties din sila na human casualty because of the soldiers, and even yung kanilang troops, and even yung kanilang assets, military assets from Japan and even South Korea are now being transferred to the Middle East kasi naubusan na sila ng military assets there. So sa Middle East para i-sustain yung war. So makikita mo mayroong ganong klaseng nangyayari sa United States na makikita mo talaga yung decline is dramatic in every aspect, especially in the currency. Kasi one of the most how do you call that? If you ask me why the United States is so-called the superpower, it's because of the control of the international currency and also of the control of oil, which is the petrodollar. Everything is transacted in dollar. But now Russia, Putin said, if we would want to transact oil, gas, in terms if you buy, gagamitin nyo na is yuan, so the Chinese currency. And even Iran already have said that. So itong shift na magiging from petrodollar to petro-yuan, if it becomes more evident, it means there's already a new super number one in the world, and that's China. This is something that we cannot prevent. I mean, from people like us, from the Philippines, this is unfolding in front of us. And I think other countries also is witnessing this. So this is something that we need to be very careful and we need to observe. And I think we need to be wise about all these things, especially for a country like the Philippines that has this very close ties with the United States, militarily speaking, and also even in other aspect of relationship. And I think our foreign policy still, at the end of the day, is very leaning to the United States. So maybe our politicians and government officials should observe this and think and be wiser when it comes to these things, because the Philippines need to see this as it is and the reality of things, so that you can position the country in a better situation vis-a-vis what is going on in the region and in the world when you talk about geopolitics.
Opo.
Yeah.
As early as now, Prof, anong nakikita mo na dapat response o magiging proactive na move ng Pilipinas kapag dumating na po ang sitwasyon na yan at nagbago na nga po no yung sitwasyon sa buong mundo, at ano sa tingin mo ang dapat gawin ng masang Pilipino na makasabay po sa mga issue na ito?
Well, as far as foreign policy is concerned, I think we need to recalibrate the current foreign policy of Marcos Jr., President Marcos Jr. And I don't think the people in in DFA and Department of Foreign Affairs are stupid not to see this. I think I would believe they are very competent diplomats and people in the Department of Foreign Affairs who can actually see these things happening before us. And also I think pwede silang mag-advise sa President. Well, it's Marcos Jr. at the moment na, try to observe, try to rethink, and try to recalibrate the foreign policy. Again, at the end of the day, hindi ako magsasawang sabihin na we need to have a balanced foreign policy. I'm not saying that we sever our ties with the United States, no. What I'm saying is balance it. We have a good relation with all major powers, Russia, China, and the United States. Be more independent, be more neutral, so that you have leverage and space to maneuver if there are things happening in the world that we cannot control as a country, but we can adapt depending on where we are and where we position ourselves. So I think this is important for the current administration, even for officials in government, and more important, after the 2028 national election. Because that is, kung anong mangyayari ngayon, siguro pwedeng sundan yan ng susunod administration, or pwede rin siyang baguhin at i-guide siya sa tamang posisyon when you talk about foreign policy ng next administration. So these are all important things na kailangan nating subaybayan, i-monitor at mag-adjust. The Philippines really has to understand what is going on in the world at the moment, what is going on in the region, who is emerging as number one, and like the United States is declining dramatically, who are the major powers, and paano mo i-calibrate ang relationship mo. Because at the moment, kung titignan mo kung sino mag-emerge as number one in a matter of time, we don't have good relation with that country at this time. I really hope the current administration of Marcos Jr. will realize this, and he has 2 years in office. And I hope he make a good, at least, because may 2 years pa siya eh. I don't agree with the Marcos Jr. foreign policy, but he has 2 years to at least try to recalibrate it in a way that, would benefit the country, try to have a functional relationship with China, and constructive. The right word I think is constructive relation. There's always a way to talk, there's always a way to negotiate, and there's always a way for an open dialogue. And I think this is important. At the moment, before pa mangyari yung shift, yung tinatawag mong total shift ng mundo na, there's a new number one in the world. Because that is really a trend, and that will happen. It's something that we cannot prevent as a country. We're small. We can only adapt to the shift in geopolitics and global order. That's what I can tell you and to our Filipino. Ang masang Pilipino needs to be educated with what's going on in the world. Dapat hindi tayo parokyal. Dapat we can understand na kung anong nangyayari sa mundo, sa region, will always have an impact on our own domestic situation. Kasi the Philippines is not an island. We live in a region, we relate to the region, and we need to see the realities of what's going on in the region. And at the same time, there's a wider world out there na kailangan nating intindihin para alam natin kung paano pumosisyon, mas informed ng ating magiging perspective. At one more thing, at pag-inform ka kasi, when you talk about choosing leaders that you will elect in the next election, it's very important. Kasi alam nyo, mga kababayan at MJ, we need to elect leaders who are not only good but competent, smart, and have a better understanding of the world. It's very important. We're in the 21st century already. We need to have this kind of leaders. But if we will have the same leaders that we have right now, politicians, I don't think the Philippines will be able to adjust to the current to what is happening, and also it would be a loose opportunity for us. Yun yung tingin ko lang ha, na kailangan ang mga masang ang Pilipino, mag-isip sino ba ang kanilang dapat suportahan sa 2028. Kasi lahat ngayon ng mga nangyayari sa Pilipinas, lahat it's geared to 2028. Especially the domestic politics. So, I think dapat mas maging wiser, smart ang ating mga kababayan when it comes to these things. Ako, yun ang paniniwala ko.
Opo, lalo na Prof, ang Department of Energy, sinabi po na ang makakatulong po sa atin ngayon ay ang shift sa fleet, government fleet, and siguro sa private sector din, na gumamit na ng electric vehicle. Mukhang isa lang ang bansang dominante sa EVs dahil sabi ng mga ibang eksperto, kahit na matapos ang giyera bukas, hindi na po babalik sa normal. Pre-February 27, 2026 ang nangyari ngayon na giyera sa Middle East. Meaning, hindi na po raw babalik sa 60 peso per liter ang presyo ng langis sa bansa. Paano po yan? Iba po ang tahak natin sa bansa na giant exporter ng electric vehicles. Prof.
Yun na nga ang sinasabi ko. Kaya nga kailangan magkaroon ng mas constructive and functional relationship with China, because really in the world, I mean, when you talk about not only EV vehicles or electric vehicles, no? Hindi lang yun. When you talk about green energy, it's really China who's leading in this area, including EV or electric vehicles and other green energy kind of technology and sources of energy like solar panels. They're the one who produce this one at a cheaper price. No, I'm not kidding. I know these things. I know because I've seen it with my own two eyes. I know. So ang sinasabi ko lang is trying to have a constructive relation with China, trying to do some kind of negotiation when you talk about energy sources, especially green energy sources. Kasi ang Pilipinas really is an import dependent on fossil fuel or oil, and even some, I think, coal. These are usual, this is our dependency, and nakadepende tayo dun sa nag-export sa atin. So, ang sa akin lang is, I think the energy sector, especially the government side, the Department of Energy, not only now, but even in the next administration, should, I think of how we transition from being dependent on oil to utilize what you call green energy sources. Kasi marami naman tayo nun. May hydro tayo, we have sources of, when you talk about solar energy, I think we can produce if we can orchestrate or come up with a plan on how to improvise our solar energy, the potential of solar energy in the Philippines. Wind, we can also do that. These are green energy. No, I think we need to think like that, and we need to plan for that. Kasi kung magiging dependent ka sa oil with the volatility in the Middle East, at saka yung sinasabi na hindi babalik sa dating presyo before the Middle East crisis, I think the Philippines will be at the disadvantage. That I can tell you. But one more thing, though we can transition to green energy, and we can have that, we have the natural resource for that, and then we can negotiate in terms of technology with China, because China really has the technology for this. They're number one in this. I'm not kidding. On the other hand, you need also to look at our own resources. Like for example, yung pinag-uusapan nga na debatable na issue ng oil and gas exploration in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. It's an opportunity. It can be explored, it can be discussed, it can be negotiated, depending on and as long as it is within the bounds of our constitution. And I think it has to be explained with China that, there are limitations and how you can possibly work within that limitation, that we can still pursue something that is good for the Philippines, especially when you talk about energy security. I think this is very important. There's nothing wrong in trying. There's nothing wrong in trying to explore and make way, as long as the leadership in the Philippines has political will, because it takes political will for all of these things to happen. So, and it depends on the president, because at the end of the day, it's the president who is on top of the government. So this is what I think. And if we can start it as early as now, then we have more time to transition until in the next administration, whoever that may be, whoever the president, they can, whatever started now, they can pick it up and maybe refine it more. Energy security is important for the Philippines. And I hope many Filipinos and even leaders and politicians would see this, has to see this. Because if not, then Philippines will have more problems in the future when you talk about energy. So these are things that we need to do. And relationship with China, when you talk about energy, is important, especially green energy. They have all the technology. I'm not kidding, MJ. I've been to solar farms in China, watch how they grow. I've been to wind farms in China. I've been to hydro, electric wind. I visited the industrial areas of China, and I saw it, that they have the capacity to, when it comes to these things, and they're number one. So if we have a constructive relationship, then we can, we can negotiate, we can ask, and we can join. I mean, in terms of cooperation and energy, the South China Sea issue is a separate issue. The DFA has to deal with it. The diplomats has to deal with it within the bounds of, of the scope of the conflict. It should never be an issue that will overshadow all other relationship between the Philippines and China. Because if this issue will overshadow everything that we have with China in terms of relationship, like people to people, business, energy, tourism, then it's the losing end will be the Philippines. We need to know how to treat all of this separately. I'm not saying that we don't assert our right in the South China Sea. No. What I'm saying is you need to learn how to separate this issue from all other relationship, so that we still benefit from China in terms of its technology, its resources, like other Southeast Asian countries. So yun yung position ko lagi. I'm not saying that we don't fight or we don't assert our claims in the South China Sea. What I'm saying is we need to be wise. We need to know how to separate things. Wag yung jumble lahat magulo. So mahirap yun.
Opo, but sa inyo rin pong karanasan dyan, Prof. Ang China po ba ay willing mag-share ng technology? Or ano ba ang treatment nila, Prof? Alam natin projects. Matindi. Technology-wise po.
Yes, I think so. It depends. Though, ang sinasabi ko, MJ, everything can be negotiated, everything can be discussed. I think they will share whatever they have, especially when you talk about technology, and especially teaching us things like, for example, wind farm, energy, solar, giving us how the technology when you talk about improving solar sources of energy. I think they will share. But there's one important factor. In every relationship between state to state level, there's always one factor. Political relation between the two sides should be good. Because from the political relation, if it's good, other things is okay. Other things will be okay. Because the political relation is constructive or at least functional in a good way. So if the political relationship between the two sides are not okay, other aspect of the bilateral relation with China will be affected, even tourism, even energy, and even like infrastructure project, all of these things will be affected. And I think another important thing for the Philippines to think about, especially our government in now and in the future, is for the Philippines to be part of regional institution or multilateral institution that is now most global South countries would want to be part of. Like, for example, BRICS. We need to be part of BRICS. We need to think about this. We need to be part of BRICS. So that's even just one. There are other multilateral organization that is ang mga members niya ba ay mga global south countries. Global south meaning developing economies like the Philippines. So I think that would help us too. We need to push for membership with this kind of multilateral or regional organization. And I would recommend that the first one to be targeted is to be part of BRICS. Other Southeast Asian countries are already part of BRICS. Siguro naman ang Pilipinas should think about it. It's an advantage to our side. So yun yung mga bagay na kailangan pag-isipan, kailangan tignan, at kailangan i-consider, I think. Yeah.
Opo, last na lang Prof, sa ating pong ASEAN chairmanship ngayong taon, ano ba dapat ang dapat gawin ng Department of Foreign Affairs o ng Marcos Jr. Admin to secure a position dito po sa mga regional blocks na bago, at paano natin malalampasan ang krisis sa langis sa pamamagitan po ng pagkikipag-ugnayan sa mga kapitbahay na bansa?
Oh, magandang tanong yan kasi tayo ang chairman. And I think from what I can read, marami ako nababasa na parang sunod-sunod ang meeting, mga minister level meeting ng among ASEAN counterparts sa Manila kasi tayo ngayong host. So I think this is part of the being the chairman, being the chair of ASEAN. But on the other hand, kung ano ang kailangan kumbaga agenda na i-put forward ng Pilipinas being the chair of ASEAN sa lahat ng meetings, depende kung energy yan or whatsoever, is I think first is energy security. I think the Philippines being the chair should discuss with ASEAN, how to come up with a regional plan for all ASEAN members to agree that they will be able to share technology, share resources when you talk about energy, or how to come up with a united front and dealing with sources, dealing with other countries or other regions, saying, when you talk about supply of energy, and when it comes to oil, but on the other hand, also come up with a united front when you talk about green energy. This is very important, I think, because energy crisis is evident at the moment, not only in the Philippines, but even in other Southeast Asian countries. So I think that's one important aspect that, the chairmanship should put forward. That's for Marcos Jr. to consider because he is the president. On the other hand, I think is the Philippines should, because it's a member of ASEAN, and being a member, it's like a family. ASEAN is like a family. So I think from my perspective, Philippines should have closer relationship with ASEAN member states. More. Because at the end of the day, if you need help, you go to your family in the region, and that is ASEAN. So I think that kind of close relationship with other ASEAN countries is important. You should not be like an odd member of ASEAN na parang naiiba ka. I think. And I think Philippines should consult ASEAN counterparts and even ASEAN member states, especially when you talk about military and defense. The Philippines should not act unilaterally just because it has an MDT or a good relation with the United States. When you talk about under BBM administration, that it acts unilaterally, at minsan hindi kinukonsulta ang ASEAN member states when you talk about steps. I think it should, because at the end of the day, if you want help, the first thing that you do is you go to your family in the region, and that's ASEAN. So, yun yung mga tingin ko na dapat, ilatag ng chairmanship ng Pilipinas. At the same time, when you talk about the South China Sea, I think it should be more constructive discussion. Like, for example, push for the code of conduct in the South China Sea is very important. It's not a solution to the problem in the South China Sea, but it's a tool of managing the conflict that it will not escalate. And I think that is to our advantage also. So I think this is also very important. Don't use the South China Sea issue to antagonize any major power in the region. It's not a prudent thing to do. And what I'm referring is China. Don't use it. At the end of the day, magbabaklas yan. Philippines pa rin ang disadvantage. I'm not kidding. This is the real power dynamics in the region. So yun yung mga dapat sigurong intindihin. And I think also, another issue I think that's very important sa ASEAN level is supply chain. I think Philippines should discuss and talk more with ASEAN counterparts how to strengthen the internal supply chain of the region of Southeast Asia in the ASEAN level. Yeah, it's important when you talk about trade and when you talk about goods, exchange of goods, especially with the crisis na mayroon dyan sa Middle East. So I think ito yung mga bagay na well, dapat pag-isipan nila, dapat, i-put forward siguro when there are, ngayon na chair ang Pilipinas ng ASEAN sa kanilang, sa ibang member states. So, ito yung tingin ko.
Opo, Prof, maraming salamat po sa inyong panahon at mabuhay po kayo, ma'am.
Thank you, MJ, and God bless. And hello, Pastor Kibuloy. I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yan po mga kababayan, si Professor Ana Malinduguy sa pong Geopolitical Analyst.